So if you have like a notebook full of 5-year plans, maybe a vision board,
Yeah.
and a dozen brilliant business ideas saved on your phone, you might think you're well on your way to building wealth.
Right, which is a super common assumption.
Yeah, exactly. But according to the sources we're unpacking today, that raw ambition is, well, it's actually your biggest distraction.
It really is.
And the central, somewhat brutal premise of our deep dive today is this ambition makes plans, but discipline makes money.
Yeah, that's the core of it.
So our mission today is to break down the specific mechanical habits that help you bridge that incredibly frustrating gap between, having a financial dream and the reality of actually executing it. Because let's be brutally honest about those notebooks full of ideas, plans do not pay your rent.
No, they definitely don't. And I mean, the sources offer a framework that really grounds this idea using this great mechanical metaphor.
Oh, right. The fuel and the engine.
Exactly. So think of your ambition as the fuel, right? And your daily discipline is the engine itself. Most ambitious people spend their entire lives endlessly filling up a gas tank that just isn't actually connected to a drivetrain.
They're just collecting inspiration.
Yeah, constantly seeking that next hit of motivation, a new interview, a new inspiring biography. But without the heavy, boring mechanical components to convert that raw fuel into forward motion, you just end up sitting in the driveway.
You're just revving the engine.
Exactly. Revving the engine and wondering why the scenery outside your window hasn't changed.
So the goal today is to help you assemble that engine, piece by piece. And the first part of that engine really deals with getting off the starting line.
Right.
Because ambition usually tells us that we need more time. We need more market research, or a bulletproof business plan, or a perfectly designed website before we launch.
Which is a trap.
Well, let me challenge that right out of the gate, though. I mean, isn't preparation a prerequisite for success? Jumping into a market or an investment totally blind seems like a really great way to lose everything.
Sure, but there is a sharp distinction between necessary groundwork and, using preparation as a hiding place.
A hiding place.
Yeah, because when taken too far, the desire to feel ready is really just fear wearing a very smart-sounding disguise. The market does not reward what you intend to do. It only respects execution.
Wow, okay. That's a good way to put it.
Right. Because a perfect business model that remains on a whiteboard earns absolutely nothing. Whereas a flawed business that actually opens its doors, well, it starts gathering real-world data immediately.
Right.
A customer rejecting your actual product will teach you infinitely more about your market than, like, another 6 months of private planning in your living room.
So you're basically saying action produces data and planning only produces assumptions.
That is the exact core mechanism. Starting before you feel ready forces you to deal with reality. And this concept of forcing your own hand, it applies directly to the foundation of wealth building too, saving and investing.
Okay, how so?
Well, to combat the sheer unreliability of our own daily motivation, the sources emphasize relying on mechanical automation over sheer willpower.
Oh, that makes total sense psychologically. I mean, willpower is a finite resource, right?
Very finite.
If your strategy is to wait until the end of the month and just, save whatever money happens to be left over, you're forcing yourself to make a really difficult, forward-thinking decision when you are at your absolute weakest.
Yeah, you're completely drained by then.
Exactly. You're pitting your long-term financial goals against your tired, depleted, 11 p.m. scrolling Amazon self. And that late-night version of you does not care about early retirement. That version of you just wants a quick hit of dopamine right now.
Yeah. Which is exactly why relying on self-control is a completely losing strategy over a 30-year timeline. The discipline here is to take your human flaws completely out of the equation.
By automating it.
Right. You set up a system that pays your future self first, before you even have a chance to intervene. The exact moment your paycheck hits your account, automatic transfers must instantly route a percentage of that money into your savings and investment portfolios.
You just engineer the environment.
Yeah, you engineer an environment where building wealth happens by default.
See, that sounds great in a textbook, but setting up a blind transfer assumes you actually have enough of a buffer in your checking account.
Well,
I mean, if you just automate everything without looking, couldn't a poorly timed auto transfer trigger a massive overdraft fee and, put you even further in the hole?
so if a $50 or $100 automatic transfer threatens to overdraft your account, it actually exposes a much deeper structural flaw in your finances.
Like what?
It means you are living right at the edge of your income limit. And that brings us to the next necessary component of the engine. Because automation solves the willpower problem for saving, But there's a massive leak in most people's
The
systems.
spending side of things.
Exactly. You can automate your investments all day long, but if you're simultaneously bleeding cash through lifestyle creep and just, unmonitored spending,
Yeah.
you're essentially bailing water into a boat with a hole in its hull.
Okay, so we have to shift from offense to defense, basically. We need to stop the leak.
Yes. And the required discipline here is to evaluate fixed costs to ensure your spending aligns with financial objectives.
That sounds like corporate speak.
It is. The sources recommend treating your personal finances with the exact same scrutiny that a chief financial officer applies to a corporation's balance sheet.
Okay, I see.
Because the CFO does not wait for the corporate bank account to hit zero before they review the software subscriptions, the vendor contracts, and all those hidden monthly fees. They review those costs on a strict schedule.
To make sure the capital is actually doing what it's supposed to.
Right, rather than just evaporating into overhead.
I totally see the disconnect there. The average person's ambition usually only reacts to a financial scare. Like if you only look at your budget when your credit card gets declined at the grocery store or when you're sweating about making rent next week.
Yeah, that's not a system.
Exactly. You don't actually have a financial system. You have a fire alarm. And a fire alarm only goes off when the house is already burning down.
Right, and a proactive audit puts out the sparks before the fire even starts. The goal of this defense is to protect the single most important metric in wealth building, which is the gap between what you earn and what you spend.
And human nature actively works to destroy that gap, right? Through lifestyle creep.
Oh, constantly. The second you get a raise or land a new client, the instinct is to immediately upgrade your life. You lease a nicer car, you move to a more expensive apartment, and you start buying premium brands.
It's so tempting.
It is. But the discipline is to live like the person you were 2 income brackets ago for as long as you can possibly tolerate it.
Because if you close that gap by upgrading your lifestyle, there's just no money left to automate and you kill the compounding engine entirely.
Exactly.
But protecting that gap requires a lot of daily restraint. How do we build guardrails against those impulsive, lifestyle inflating purchases?
You have to implement structural friction. Because we live in a world that is algorithmically designed to make you part with your money using a single click or a facial scan on your phone.
It's terrifyingly easy.
Yeah. So to counter this, you have to force a biological reset. The sources outline a really strict rule for major purchases or investments. You must write down investment reasoning before making decisions to avoid emotional impulse buying.
It's like the ultimate battle between past you and future you.
Yes.
Think about past you sitting at the kitchen table on a random Tuesday morning. You have your coffee, you're looking at your budget, you're completely rational. But future you is standing inside a dealership looking at a car you can barely afford. You're smelling the new leather. The salesperson is offering a quote-unquote limited time interest rate. Your adrenaline is pumping. Future you is completely biologically compromised.
And from a neurological standpoint, that is exactly what is happening. The anticipation of a new purchase spikes dopamine and activates the amygdala, which is the emotional center of your brain.
So logic just goes out the window.
Totally takes a backseat.
Yeah.
By requiring yourself to wait 24 hours for any non-essential purchase, you allow that neurochemical spike to dissipate. The decision-making process routes back to your prefrontal cortex, which handles rational, long-term planning.
So writing it down is like a contract.
Right. Writing down your investment logic while you are calm serves as a contract with yourself. It short-circuits the temptation to chase a hype cycle or buy something just to temporarily relieve stress.
And if you wake up the next day and the math still works, you can buy it. But usually that burning urge just evaporates.
Almost always.
So, okay, we've set up the automation and we've built biological guardrails to defend against emotional spending. The leak is plugged. But how do we actually know if this vehicle is moving in the right direction?
You need a dashboard.
Right, because ambition loves to talk about momentum, growth, and good vibes. But you can feel incredibly busy without being productive, and you can feel productive without generating a single dollar of actual profit.
Yeah, discipline demands a much harsher lens on reality. You must define clear metrics to measure your weekly progress. Feelings will lie to you when you want them to, but a spreadsheet will not.
Let me push back on that spreadsheet, though,
Right.
because for someone who is in debt or struggling to get a business off the ground, opening a spreadsheet full of red numbers induces massive anxiety.
It does.
Isn't it sometimes better for your mental health to just keep your head down, hustle as hard as you can, and hope the math works itself out in the end?
I mean, Avoidance feels like a relief in the short term, but it is a silent killer. When you avoid looking at your accounts, your imagination takes over, and the human brain is hardwired to
Oh,
catastrophize.
it'll make it seem so much worse.
Exactly. It will convince you the hole is 10 times deeper than it actually is. By forcing yourself to look at the cold, hard data, you strip away the terror of the unknown,
Even if the numbers are bad.
even if they're terrible.
Yeah.
Because they are finite, they are a defined problem that you can now actively solve, rather than just some vague monster hiding under the bed.
It basically reclaims your agency. You stop being a victim of your finances and start being the manager of them.
Yes, and you don't need to track everything, which leads to analysis paralysis. You just isolate the dials that actually move the needle for your specific goals.
Give me an example.
So if you're building a freelance business, you track weekly revenue, profit margins, and the number of outbound pitches you sent. If your goal is debt reduction, you track the exact principal paid down and your monthly net worth.
Taking the feelings right out of it.
When you replace vague feelings of hustle with factual data, improving your financial life becomes a matter of mechanics rather than guesswork.
But gathering that data, running the CFO audit on your fixed costs, drafting out your investment strategies, all of that requires a lot of focused, uninterrupted effort.
It really does.
It isn't something you can just squeeze in while you're waiting in the drive-through line for coffee. And ambitious people are notorious for running in a dozen different directions. So how do you find the time to actually maintain this engine?
The secret is you don't find the time. You mandate it.
Mandate it. Okay.
The transition from amateur to professional requires you to create a concrete schedule for weekly CEO time. The sources suggest carving out a non-negotiable block of 60 minutes every single week that functions strictly as your executive review.
So you literally open your calendar right now and block off an hour, labeling it CEO time. Let's break down the mechanics of that hour, though. What is actually happening during those 60 minutes? Because I feel like the instinct for a lot of people will be to just use that time to reply to emails or clean out their inbox, which is really just busy work disguised as progress.
Exactly, no emails. This time block is strictly for high-level oversight and systemic improvement. So the first 15 minutes might be spent pulling those specific weekly metrics we just discussed, like updating your net worth tracker or analyzing the return on investment from a recent marketing spend.
Okay, that's 15 minutes. What's next?
The next 20 minutes are dedicated to that CFO-style defense, negotiating a lower rate on your internet bill, canceling unused subscriptions, or reviewing your portfolio rebalancing strategy.
That makes sense. And what about the rest of the time? Because the sources mentioned something fascinating about where your true value actually comes from.
Wow, yes.
They pointed out that your day job funds your current survival, but what you do outside of those hours builds your ultimate ownership.
Right, because the marketplace is ruthlessly efficient. It does not pay you based on how hard you sweat or how stressed you feel.
Sadly.
It compensates you based on the scarcity and the memorable value of the skills you can provide. Therefore, a portion of this weekly executive session must be dedicated to upskilling.
Working on yourself.
Yes, you use this time to study a new tax code, learn a new software language, or research an emerging market trend. You are actively increasing the intrinsic value of the asset that generates your wealth, which is you.
Okay, so once you are running these executive sessions and the system is actually humming, how do you scale it? Because the ambition in the room is going to want to take all this new discipline and immediately swing for the fences. The massive crypto play, the tech startup, the highly leveraged real estate deal.
Which is super dangerous.
Oh, yeah.
That brings us to the concept of order of operations. To ensure this effort actually lasts, you have to sequence these practices into a reliable, repeatable system for long-term compounding.
So order matters.
Absolutely. The discipline of sequencing requires you to build a profoundly boring floor of income first.
When you say sequencing, it sounds like building a fortress before you launch an attack. You shouldn't be gambling on a high-risk venture if you don't even have a 6-month emergency fund sitting in a high-yield savings account.
That is exactly the right analogy.
Yeah.
You build a foundation of reliable, repeatable revenue. This could be a broad market index fund portfolio, a modest rental property, or even just a very steady, unglamorous freelance contract.
The boring baseline.
You establish this boring baseline first. That secure floor is what gives you the psychological and financial safety to take asymmetrical risks later, because you know that if the exciting startup fails, your life won't collapse.
But boring is exactly where most ambitious people sabotage themselves.
Oh, completely.
They associate boredom with failure. They build a system that works, they see steady returns, but after 8 months, they stop feeling that initial rush of adrenaline, right? It isn't new anymore. So they abandon a perfectly functional wealth building vehicle to start from scratch on a brand new, exciting idea.
The sources identify this as strategy hopping, and it is the absolute enemy of compound interest.
Because compounding needs time.
Compounding takes time to work its mathematical magic. Whether it's a dividend portfolio or a content marketing strategy, the massive returns only arrive at the very tail end of the timeline.
Right.
10 years of quiet, consistent, unseen grinding is the standard recipe for an overnight success. You have to learn to tolerate the boredom of a working system.
Man, we have covered a massive architectural shift today. I mean, we moved from relying on raw motivation to starting before we're ready. We set up mechanical automation to bypass our limited willpower.
Yep.
We shifted to financial defense by ruthlessly auditing our baseline expenses, and we built psychological guardrails to stop emotional impulse buying. We replaced vague feelings with cold, hard metrics, and we locked in a dedicated weekly hour to manage the entire system.
It's a lot.
It is. And stacking these habits in an order allows for long-term compounding. But hearing all this, the ambitious listener probably wants to wake up at 4 a.m. tomorrow and implement every single one of these changes simultaneously.
Which is the final, and really the most dangerous, trap. Overhauling your entire life by tomorrow morning is just another manifestation of ambition disguised as hustle.
It sounds so productive, though.
It does. But if you attempt to install 10 new restrictive disciplines all at once, your willpower will shatter within a week. You will fail at all of them, and worse, you'll convince yourself that the system itself just doesn't work for you.
It's the classic New Year's resolution effect. You try to go to the gym, quit sugar, learn French, and start a business all on January 1st, and by January 12th, you are back on the couch eating takeout. So how do we actually implement this engine without blowing a gasket?
You have to isolate a single weak point. You identify one discipline to practice for 90 days. That is the timeline required for neuroplasticity to take over, turning a conscious effort into an unconscious baseline behavior.
So 90 days on just one thing, meaning if you're struggling with defense, your only goal for the next 3 months is to pause for 24 hours and write a thesis before any non-essential purchase. You literally ignore everything else on the list.
Correct. Or, if your weak point is avoidance, your only task is to log into your accounts and update your net worth spreadsheet once a week during your scheduled CEO time. You let that one single gear turn until it moves without friction. Then and only then do you introduce the next component.
I feel like this strategy fundamentally changes your relationship with yourself.
It really does.
Because every time you try to overhaul your life and fail, you basically teach yourself that your own word means nothing. But by keeping one small, hyper-focused promise to yourself today and doing it again tomorrow, you build undeniable evidence.
Evidence that you can trust yourself.
Right. You stop being a person who talks about building wealth, and you slowly rewire your self-image into someone who quietly and systematically executes.
And that consistency creates self-trust. And self-trust is the bedrock of true confidence.
So true.
Before we finish up, I really want to leave you with a question to genuinely analyze over the next few days. Think back on a major financial milestone, a business launch, or a career goal that you abandoned in the past,
Okay.
and be entirely objective about it. Did the mechanics of the strategy actually fail you? Or did you just quit because the daily maintenance of the process got boring and you decided to hop to a new strategy before the math of compounding could actually do its job?
Wow, that is a heavy lens to look through. But answering it honestly is really the first step to finally getting traction. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive. You know, ambition is a beautiful starting point. It provides the vision, it fills the notebooks, and it shows you exactly what your life could become. But the notebooks won't build the life. Keep that engine running, stick to the mechanics, and we will catch you on the next one.